Hi y'all. In this video, I'm going to attempt to explain a way to conceptualize trauma and healing using this janky drawing / model that I made up. So we'll see how this goes. Keywords, comfort zones, safety, boundaries, growth, trauma, coping and support, goal setting. Super briefly touched on. You can do this as an activity. I'll describe it in that way, but obviously feel free to just listen and watch as well. Okay, so if we think about comfort zones, I can draw these 3 circles. In the middle would be safety, your stretch zone, and panic. If you want to participate in safety, you're going to list everything that feels safe to you. So people, places, things. In the stretch zone, it would be things that elicit some fear and anxiety, but along with that, there is a feeling of hope or possibility or some excitement. And then your panic zone is going to be everything that brings you to that feeling of panic. So that's what we can think of as the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, brainstem taking over. These comfort zones, these circles, are going to be different sizes for different people. And it's super important not to just personalize it and make it be about everybody's own experiences. There's absolutely a structural element there for folks impacted by racism, classism, poverty, etc. Their safety zone is going to be way smaller, and that's, outside of individual choice. Additionally, trauma can impact these safety zones or these comfort zones. So, moving to this next drawing that looks like a weird egg or something. After trauma, it can look like your safety zone is incredibly small, your stretch zone very small, and panic takes up the majority of it. After someone experiences trauma, it feels like the world is unsafe and unpredictable. So without the feeling of safety, growth is not really possible. To use kind of like I was going to say benign example, maybe it's not benign to some folks, but fear of heights. If somebody describes heights as their panic zone, if they are in a situation where they are up super high and their fight, flight, freeze, if you're up super high, it's most likely going to be freeze, takes over, it's not going to be the type of experience where you can then process it and be like, I conquered this fear. I feel super great about myself. If it was in your stretch zone through repeated times, you could then work through that, move it to your safety zone. But when you are in that panic mindset, growth and learning isn't possible. However, there's hope. So I initially wrote this as like after healing, but then crossed it out because honestly, there's not really a timeline to that. And so we're just going to say healing process. It can be lifelong for some folks, and yeah. So in here I have all these arrows drawn, because all of these comfort zones can expand. Once we can define and reasonably avoid things in the panic zone, because there can always be a panic zone. The goal is not to like eliminate that entirely. Through different forms of healing, whether that's in therapy, in community, through activities that you do yourself, all of the mix, folks can expand these different zones. And the goal is to start with safety. So this video is already like way longer than I meant it to be. So in upcoming videos, I will describe much more about this last one, about healing, about defining safety, goal setting for putting things in your stretch zone, adding it to the safety, the need for boundaries to not be pushed into a panic zone, especially without your consent, and much, much more. Okay.